They said it all happened on a hot Thursday afternoon. That day, little Amara was just 8 years old when she followed a butterfly past her compound, down the winding path behind the village church and towards the water. No one noticed until it was too late. By the time the first scream rang out, all they found were her tiny sandals, one stuck in the mud and the other floating slowly in the shallow edge of Obuuku waterside. The river was calm, as if it were asleep, but Amara was gone. Linda was just 28 years old when she packed her entire life into a dusty Ghana must-go bag and left Abuja behind. She didn't look back, not at the old salon where her boss constantly maltreated her, not at the boyfriend who ghosted her after 4 years, and definitely not at the fake friends who only remembered her whenever they needed free wigs. Abuja is not for me, and I'm never coming back, she said to herself. With a renewed vigor and a determined spirit, Linda headed for a small community called Obuuku Waterside. Life there was very cheap and peaceful, so she heard. But what no one told her was that the community had a secret hidden beneath the river, and the peace only came at a painful price. 2 weeks after Linda arrived in the community, she started applying to different jobs in order to raise money to start her salon business. She worked as a sales girl in a provision store, sold akara by the roadside, and even did cheap hookups at night. About a month later, Linda was finally ready to open her salon. However, the shops they were very expensive, and her budget was just 5,000 naira, which was not even close to half of the price. But one fateful day, her friend Machi told her of an abandoned building by the riverside. It's been 10 years since anyone entered that building, Machi said. Linda screamed for joy without even thinking twice. Finally, God has answered my prayers, she said. The next day, Linda headed straight to the building, and when she entered inside, her heart leapt for joy. The place was old and rusty, with thick cobwebs hanging on every corner, but she didn't mind. Immediately, she started cleaning the place, and within 5 hours, she was done. The next day, she went to the market and bought all the necessary equipment she needed, and within 2 weeks, the salon was up and ready. She named it Linda's Heaven. The community watched in terror as Linda opened a salon in a building that had been abandoned for years. Linda saw their stares, but she didn't care. She was 100% sure that the villagers would troop in their numbers since the salon was close to the river, which offered nothing but peace. However, months passed, but not a single person came into her salon, not even a fly. Every day, she would sit outside her store, waving at everyone who passed by in hopes that they would approach her salon, but no one did. What is wrong? Am I cursed? Why is no one coming to my salon? She asked her friend Machi. I think it's because of the location of your salon, my dear, Machi replied. Location? What is wrong with opening a salon by the riverside? The view is beautiful and the river offers nothing but peace. That is why I didn't think twice when you told me about this place. I think I made a mistake by telling you about this place, Linda. I would advise you to live here, Machi said. But Linda was too adamant. She believed so much in the river that she failed to see the harsh stares and turned a deaf ears to anyone who tried to advise her. Linda didn't have money for proper food, and some days she would suck a dry cube of Maggi just to feel full. On her worst days, she would soak a sachet of garri in cold river water and pretended it was ice cream. The villagers said no business ever survived near the river and that the river was cursed, but Linda didn't believe in curses. She believed in second chance, and she believed in herself. At least she did, until the night it rained and she heard someone knock on her door, even though she hadn't seen anyone walk past that evening. Who knocks on a salon door in a forgotten community at midnight? The rain had just stopped when Linda heard a knock on her door. It wasn't loud, it was soft, like fingertips tapping on wood. At that moment, her heart started beating very fast. It was almost midnight and no one ever came to her salon at that dark hour, not even the drunk fishermen. She was still thinking of who the person might be when she heard another knock. At first, she wanted to ignore the person, but the knock persisted. She crossed her chest 3 times and whispered silent prayers. Then she tiptoed towards the door and opened it gently. And to her surprise, a woman was standing there. She was barefoot and soaked with water dripping from her hair. She looked human, but there was something unnatural about her presence. The woman walked inside without asking questions and sat calmly on the plastic salon chair. Linda looked at her with fear and greeted her. "Good evening. Please, what do you want?" The woman smiled faintly and said, "My name is Didi, and I have come to make you rich. I have seen your worries, and your silent prayers trouble my soul," she said. "I don't understand. Where are you from? And how do you intend to make me rich? Do you want to buy my braided wigs?" Linda asked with a shaky voice. "When the time comes, you will know who I am. All I want from you is to sell my wigs. When you sell them, keep the proceeds, but ensure you sell them." And just like that, the woman walked away. Linda rushed after her, but the woman was already walking into the river in front of her salon. The water welcomed her like an old friend, and within seconds, she disappeared beneath the surface, and her long hair was the only thing Linda saw. The next morning, when Linda woke up, she found a black nylon bag in front of her salon. She stared at it for a while, then brought it inside. With trembling fingers, she opened it, and to her surprise, she saw different kinds of wigs inside, from bouncy to single donor to double drawn. Even bone straight hairs were inside the bag. Could it be the wig the woman spoke about? But what will I tell Machi? How do I explain to people where I got the money to buy these wigs? God, what have I gotten myself into? While she was still contemplating, someone knocked on her door, but it wasn't Didi this time. It was a young woman holding her phone. "Hello there, are you the one doing hair here? I saw your salon on Instagram." Linda blinked twice. On Instagram? She wasn't even on Instagram, let alone her salon. Before she could process what the woman said, 2 more women arrived, then 3, then 5, and the numbers kept increasing. By 9 a.m., there was a line forming outside her tiny salon, but all the women were strangers. Some came from the next town. Others said they left their office job early because something told them to come. But the scariest part of everything was that most of the women couldn't explain how they heard about Linda. Linda was confused and nervous at the same time, but the hunger in her belly and the heaviness of her debts made the decision for her. Immediately, she started braiding their hair, and before the sky grew dark, she had finished. 5 out of the 15 women who came that day bought her wigs, which she sold for 115,000 naira each. And just like that, Linda made over 900,000 naira that day. Immediately the women left, she sat on the floor with her mouth opened in shock. She didn't know whether to cry or rejoice. Is this a dream come true or a trap? What exactly have I gotten myself into? She thought of running away with the money, but Didi appeared in her dream, warning her never to leave the building. Instead, she should renovate it to her taste. And every day, when she woke up, she would find a black nylon bag filled with wigs in front of her salon. And with a heavy sigh, she would bring it in. And just like that, Linda's Haven became a household name in the community and beyond. People whispered that her salon wasn't just an ordinary salon, but a place where your joy could be restored. Women who came looking tired and depressed left with smiling faces and a satisfied spirit. One shy girl who barely said hi left dancing and filming herself with confidence. Another lady checked herself in the mirror and screamed, "I feel so powerful." Her dusty salon was suddenly the hottest place in the community, maybe even the whole state. But Linda still didn't understand what was going on, but she liked it. She renovated the entire building, bought modern equipment, and employed more hands. The community women who once ignored her now started coming to her salon. She opened an Instagram account for her salon, and people started purchasing her wigs. When her friend Machi inquired about her sudden transformation, she lied that it was her uncle in Canada who sent her money to start up the business. But soon, strange stories began to swirl around certain customers who bought her wigs. It started with a woman named Ezinne, a jobless single mother who had been applying for grants for over a year without success. She wore one of the wigs her friend bought from Linda to a wedding, and the next day, a foreign company sent her a grant of $5,000 for a food business she abandoned last year. Another woman, Ireti, who had been struggling to conceive for 5 years, got pregnant 2 days after buying Linda's wig. And then there was Boma, a quiet university student who always sat at the back of the room. She wore a sleek black wig she had purchased from Linda and posted a short video of herself on TikTok. And to her surprise, the next morning, she had 1 million views and a brand deal waiting for her. Even her followers started calling her the mermaid baddie. None of the women could explain how their life transformed overnight, but all they knew was that things started turning around the moment they wore Linda's wig. Linda couldn't believe what was happening. Things were happening faster than she had expected. Every day, she received numerous testimonials from clients about the miracles her wigs worked. She told herself she was just lucky and that maybe God had finally remembered her. But sometimes at night, she would lie awake on her bed thinking, why are these wigs doing this? And who really is Didi? However, in all of this, Mama Alake was watching. Every morning, Mama Alake would set up a puff-puff table just a few steps away from Linda's shop. She was in her 60s and had a round face, strong arms, and a Bible that never left her side. Her late husband used to call her the village prophet, the village prophetess. And even though she laughed when people said that, her eyes were sharp and watching. She noticed the changes before anyone else. First, it was the women arriving like ants to sugar. Then it was the wigs, all looking like something too perfect for this world. Then she started noticing strange signs. Her 2 goats, Bisi and Ola, suddenly refused to go near Linda's salon. They would blitz, pull away, and even kick their legs anytime she tried to drag them past the shop. Then, one night, Mama Alake had a dream. She saw Linda braiding hair, but instead of customers, it was shadows sitting in the chair. Their eyes were wide, and their hair kept growing like snakes. And the mirror in the salon reflected water, not faces. The next morning, she walked up to Linda. "My child," she said quietly, "I don't know what spirit gave you that gift, but hear me well. When God gives, it's slow. But when the water gives, it drowns you in your gold first, and then it pulls your feet." Linda gave a polite smile and said, "Mama, business is just moving finally." But inside her stomach turned because she couldn't explain why her hands trembled each time she touched a new wig from Didi. One fateful night, at around 9 p.m., heavy rain started falling and hammering on Linda's roof like fists. Thunder rolled over the community, and lightning lit up in the skies in white flashes. Linda sat inside alone with her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea, trying to calm her nerves. She had been having weird dreams again, waters in her mirrors, voices in her ears, and the hairs that moved on its own. She tried to brush it off, but deep down, something felt wrong. Then suddenly, she heard a knock on her door. Linda's heart jumped. "No one should be out in this weather," she said. With trembling hands, she opened the door, and to her surprise, Didi was standing there before her, still soaked. "Do you like what you have become?" Didi asked quietly. Linda hesitated for a while, then smiled. "Yes, I do." Didi stepped inside and placed a golden box on the table. "These are special wigs. They are for people who want sudden changes in their lives," she said. Linda knelt beside the box and opened it slowly. The wigs inside glowed faintly, almost like candlelight trapped in the strand of hairs. One had purple flames dancing around the edges, and another looked like it was made from mist. Linda's hand shook. "I don't know if I should keep doing this," she whispered. Didi tilted her head angrily and said, "Then reject the gift. But if you do, the river will take more than this." Then without another word, Didi turned and vanished. Linda sat there trembling in fear. She knew she had struck a deal with a demon, but there was no way she would go back to her old life. She had fame and money, and that was all that mattered. The next day, she posted the wigs on her Instagram page at an exorbitant price. She specifically wrote in her captions that it was for people who wanted breakthrough. And within minutes, others started pouring in. However, 3 days later, Nancy Blue, a famous Instagram model and one of Linda's recent customers who bought her glowing wigs, was found dead in her apartment with the wig on her head. The report said there were no bruises, no wounds, or sign of any break-in. But the scariest part of it was that her lungs were filled with water. The doctor said it looked like she had drowned, but there was no bathtub or any physical thing to show that she had drowned. On the other side, Linda's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Some people were crying, while others were asking for the same wig Nancy wore. Linda sat in a salon with her hands shaking. Her breath was shallow and her hands were numb. That night, as the rain poured heavily, she picked up the golden box, ran outside in the dark, and threw it in the river with all her strength. "Please, take your property and leave me alone," she screamed out in fear. But the next morning, when she opened her salon, the box was sitting pretty on her table. At this point, she concluded that there was no turning back. On the outside, Linda had everything she had prayed for: wealth, fame, and purpose. Her salon was booked for months, and people traveled across states just to sit in her chair. Brands were sending her offers, newspapers wanted interviews, influencers called her a hair healer. But inside, she was breaking. Her hands tingled every time she touched the wigs, and her dreams were the scariest aspect of her life. Every night, she would see women with no faces brushing their long wet hairs with combs made from bones. They would sing songs in a language she didn't understand, but the words echoed when she woke up. Some nights, she dreamt of the river swallowing her salon and dragging everything down. But in all of this, she didn't know how to feel. Sometimes she felt satisfied, and other times she blamed herself for opening the door that night. But one quiet morning, Didi came again, and this time she held a silver box with just one wig inside. On top of the wig was a folded note which read, "This wig is for you alone. Only you can wear it." Linda stared at the wig for a long time. Then slowly, she placed it on her head. The moment it touched her scalp, her body froze, her eyes rolled back, and her mind cracked open like a wind in a storm. Then suddenly, she saw a vision. In the vision, Didi was screaming and being dragged into the river by the community people. Then she saw her salon, but it wasn't a salon anymore. It was underwater, filled with ghostly women getting their hairs done in slow motion. Their eyes were empty and their mouths were open like they were singing. Linda tried to pull off the wig, but it wouldn't move. Then she looked into the mirror, and what she saw made her heart stop beating. Her eyes were no longer normal. They were now fish eyes, round, cold, and deep. Linda's sleep trembled, then slowly she smiled. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for part 2.